Hey vinyl community, or shall I say 78 RPM community. Um, as you know, I like vinyl, I love vinyl, but also a big part of my collection, something I love as well, is 78 RPM collecting. Now, you may be new to this, you may be wondering, what is 78 RPM? Well, like it sounds, normally records were played at 33 and a third and 45 RPM, as you know, but you probably know what a 78 is, but if you're young you might not, so I'll explain it anyway. So basically, before vinyl there were gramophone records or phonograph records. You might have seen them in an old film, with a big gramophone horn, going back over 100 years now. That's the way people listened to music for a long time. Before vinyl was invented in the 40s, people would listen to their records at 78 RPM on crappy old gramophones, or when the 50s came around, people had better equipment, but they were still listening to 78s for a little while until vinyl became really popular and took over. Now, the good thing about collecting 78s is you can go back over 100 years. You can only go so far with vinyl, and obviously there's a whole lot of amazing music, more music you could ever listen to on vinyl, but it's really fun to go back even further and discover gems from another world, basically, another time, a magical place in history where everything was a lot different and in some cases more magical. Now, the good thing about collecting 78s is some songs have never been put onto vinyl, let alone MP3 or CD. The only way you can possibly hear these songs is on the 78. I could be the only person in the world to hear a particular song because, it's been lost in time basically. Nobody transferred it. It just only exists on these 78s, and they were probably smashed years ago or in someone's attic or lost or God knows what, and I might have the only one or one of a handful that's in the world, and I might be the only person listening to it, which I think is quite magical, really, and quite sad at the same time, but amazing as well. I often think, who owned this 78? A 78 that's 50, 100 years old, who was listening to this 78 back in the day, maybe it was a husband serenading his wife, or a family that got together in their living room and all kind of danced around the gramophone and had a lovely time together and all loved each other, and it was their favourite record and it was just a magical time for them. Maybe it was snowing outside, maybe it was the summertime, maybe they were on a ship sailing to England in the First World War, which is where I got a few of my records from an American ship that came over in the war, and they would listen to those records as they crossed the Atlantic. What have these records seen in their days? Who knows? And I think that's rather a beautiful thing, Same with vinyl, but you can go back even further with 78, as I said, so it's really interesting to me. And it's funny, being in the southwest of England, I'll find 78s from all over the world. I'll find Greek records like we're listening to now on the HMV label, and they've got that beautiful Greek text on them, really interesting. I'll find Arabic records. I'll find, being in Europe, or as we used to be Europe, now we're unfortunately not. I won't go into that, but anyway, I'll find records. People would move here from all over Europe, and I'll find them from Spain, Italy, all over the place. Really interesting. France. I can't often read, I have no idea who it is, but beautiful music. Like this one here, I'll turn it up a little bit for you to hear. It's absolutely gorgeous and magical. I don't know if it's popular in Greece or what, but anyway. 78s. I thought I'd show a few. I'm a bit of a mess here because I was live on Instagram and I was just kind of showing random records off, doing like I am now, really playing music. And but I'll show a few just for the curious. One thing to note about 78s, they're not made out of vinyl. If you don't know, they're made out of shellac. And shellac, if you don't know, was basically crushed up beetles thousands and thousands of Beatles, and they'd crush them up and make this kind of paste, and that would be the record, which is pretty crazy to think about. And yeah, just a lot of the time, you know, you might, if you don't know, you might think 78s, oh, they sound like crap because you've only ever heard them played on a gramophone. But actually, when microphones were introduced in the 20s, recording, you know, if you play them on a modern hi-fi, they sound great. They sound like vinyl, other than the only thing that's different is they haven't got the warmth of vinyl, but they've got the clarity, they've got the air, you know, there's a big space to the music. Very much like vinyl, just without the warmth. But yeah, the instruments sound very real, wonderful stuff. So yeah, I recommend it. Basically, all you need to do to get going is you can get these modern Audio-Technica turntables for cheap, and they have the 78 speed on them. You press the 33 and the 45 together, and that's your 78. And then you just need to buy a 78 RPM needle, and you're away. You're opened up to a whole new world. It's brilliant. I've been doing it for years. I used to have a different Audio-Technica turntable, which I used to like a bit more, and I kind of got this one. But actually, I've been playing it today, and I've been really enjoying it, so I'm happy with that. So yeah, I mean, I've got all sorts here that I've been listening to today. This is a great band. Anything I ever find of this band, I always buy. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but the Kiona Cuban Boys, Taboo Afro-Cubano, there's this track, and this is absolutely beautiful. I might put it on in the background if I can get away with it. The story goes with this. This was recorded in France, and there's like a sound of like a banging in the background, and apparently that's them banging a wooden chair in the background for a bit of a beat, you know, which is interesting, I thought. And this is a beautiful song, but I'll have it quiet in the background. Hopefully we won't get a copyright strike. So yeah, gorgeous. Here's an example of one of the Greek labels, if you can see. Gorgeous music. Here's Hoagie. Oh no. Okay, my phone was just about to die. Luckily, we're still here. Hoagie Carmichael from the 40s. Hugging in a Chalky and Old Buttermilk Sky. I love Hoagie Carmichael. You know, if you've ever seen To Have and Have Not with Humphrey Bogart and Norman Bacall, he's in that playing the piano. He's in quite a few films. I think he was in The Man with the Horn as well, with Kirk Douglas. That was a good one. But yeah, he's very well known. Hoagie Carmichael, beautiful music. Here's a cool one. Lead Belly. How Long and Good Morning Blues. Now, the thing about blues is it was, you know, sold in America, and you have these ridiculous, you know, like Paramount records where the records sell for like thousands of dollars. But over here in England, they were never released back in those times, I believe. Blues wasn't that popular. Jazz stuff was released, but blues really wasn't until the 50s when it got reissued. So then you would get like your Lead Bellies and random stuff being reissued here. And now and then I'll find some. But if you want the real stuff, the real American original records on like Paramount or whatever, they're extremely expensive, as you might imagine. If you can find a Robert Johnson on Vocalion, then you could probably buy a car with that. So yeah. Good Night Irene. And Ain't You Glad by Lead Belly. Here's a good one, Jimmie Rodgers, Blue Yodel Number 6. Jimmie Rodgers was a country singer, basically the father of country music, really. You know, he was doing country in the 20s. I think he died of tuberculosis, unfortunately. But he did this song, The Blue Yodel, that was very popular, and there's about 1 million versions of it, and that's number 6. But yeah, they're all really good, and yeah, definitely recommend Jimmie Rodgers if you don't know him and you like country. I've got a lot of Duke Ellington on 78. Duke Ellington was, frankly, a genius. If you listen to his 20s stuff, The fact that they had to record that in one take, the arrangements and everything that goes on in between, I mean, it's unbelievable. If you listen to that music, listen to that track Hot Feet on YouTube, and really think about how that's recorded in one take. It's quite incredible, really. But yeah, I was watching the Jazz Shepherd recently, great channel if you don't know him, and he was talking about how Duke Ellington should be on the Mount Rushmore of jazz, and yeah, I agree with that, because his influence and you know, an amazing composer, arranger, musician. Check him out if you don't know his 20s, 30s stuff, you know. Okay, so what else have we got here? I've got so much here. I had some 30s Louis Armstrong out, which is lovely. You Rascal You. That's a great track. If you've never heard You Rascal You by Louis Armstrong, fantastic. He's talking about how he'll be glad when they're dead, you rascal you. Yeah, quite un-PC by now, you know, they didn't mess about back then, you know. I mean, it's not gangster rap, but, you know, straight to the point. This is an interesting one, Just a Little Talk with Jesus. I'm not religious, but if you've ever listened to the $1 Million Quartet stuff on YouTube with Johnny Cash and Carl Perkins and Elvis, there's like a famous jam session behind the scenes that actually got recorded by, I believe, Sam Phillips in the day, and it's brilliant. If you can imagine all those great artists singing together, if you've never heard it, check it out. But anyway, they sang that Just a Little Talk with Jesus on that. But this was like a travelling American group in England, I believe they recorded this, in London, on Evangelical Records, nice little label there. What else have we got here? Bear with me. I don't know where it's gone, but I have got Hank Williams on 78. I talked briefly in a previous video where I kind of wheeled it into happening. Like, I went to all these flea markets all the time. I was like, Hank Williams, Hank Williams, Hank Williams. And being in the southwest of England, you know, that's a difficult thing to find. And one day I was like, Hank Williams, and boom, there it was. Hank Williams singing in Waterfall. I couldn't believe it. And so I swear I manifested it to happen. And of course I've lost it now, so wherever that's gone, I don't know. I need to manifest it back. Yeah, I've got some rock and roll stuff. I had some Jerry Lee Lewis on earlier. That was great. I was rocking around to that. I've got some Elvis, actually. I know Elvis's 78s on Sun Records. The originals are worth a lot of money, but they came out here on HMV, so there's Don't Be Cruel. Back with Hound Dog. But yeah, I've got a ton to show, really. Maybe I'll do another episode where I show some more, but I imagine most people only watch this for like a couple minutes anyway, and I'm probably talking to myself right now, so if you've got this far, thank you. But yeah, until next time, I hope you're all doing well. This has been a nice distraction for me today from the bullshit going on outside in the world, as I'm sure you're more than aware of. So yeah, until next time, hope you're doing well.